Today's review / installation is about Snotos chain guard or sprocket guard, currently available for V-Stroms and a total of 100 other motorcycles out there. Hi, I'm Dr. V-Strom and this is Snotos Clean Disc Guard. If it is the first time that you visited the channel, I hope you enjoyed the channel itself and the videos. If you are at the 75% of those who forgot to subscribe and you enjoy my content, please subscribe. Regarding subscribing, it's something that costs nothing, it's completely free, it takes a few seconds and a press of a button, but it really makes a huge difference in maintaining this channel and bringing in new content. By the way, I'm not getting paid or sponsored for this particular product, and this is my own review. Long story short, with this product, the company attempts to address an issue that all of us who ride motorcycles with a chain drive system usually face. Whether or not you have an automatic motorcycle chain oiler or you lube your chain on your own. As stated on Snotos or the company's website, link currently on your screen, this product assists in keeping your motorcycle clean from chain lube by not allowing it, that is the chain lube, to reach the rim, the spokes and other parts of the motorcycle. Thus it saves you money and time to clean it. Another great benefit that is, however, not mentioned in the company's website becomes evident if you watch my recent video on cleaning spokes and wheels. Video link up here or up here. Of both motorcycle wheels, it's always the case that the worst wheel is the rear wheel, the dirtiest one. And that's because of the chain lube and dirt plus brake dust sticking on it, on the rim, as you can see, but also on the spokes, and that's especially true if you also go off-road very often. As you can see, that's not the same case with the front wheel, which is way much cleaner compared to the rear one, because there is no chain lube for the dirt to stick. If you refer to the same video, you will see that I mention also that the last few years motorcycle forums for V-Stroms, for Africa Twins and other adventure motorcycles, they are full, or they have many comments about pitted, corroded and even rusted spokes, in particular on the rear wheel. Perhaps an explanation about why this is happening in particular in the majority of the rear wheels might be that a great part of your chain lube, when you lube your chain, with the movement of the rear wheel, it ends up in these locations. So that means in the spokes, in the rim and so on, it forms a sticky base, and then any dirt or any brake dust or even salt during the winter period, it sticks there and it starts to corrode these particular components of the motorcycle in these particular locations. This video will review and test this guard on areas such as ease of installation on the motorcycle, strength, flexibility, stability on high speeds, use cases and effectiveness on its claims, so on the company claims of how good it is. Very fast, the guard is, as you can see, decent looking. It actually looks very nice with the V-Stroms. It is also stealthy looking, meaning that If you don't know, it might be the case you will not identify it. And this that you see is the latest form out there, the final form, after a series of necessary upgrades. This product comes in several variants depending on your motorcycle. As I mentioned, it fits currently 100 motorcycles out there. In the case of V-Stroms, for demonstration purposes, this is the one that fits all the 650 models, including this one. So this is for the 650, and for the 1000 and 1050 models for V-Stroms, the variant or the form is currently on your screen, and you can see the only difference is that it comes on three separate parts instead of two that this model is. This particular variant that you see on the table is for all 650 models, all 650 V-Stroms that is. It comes as two parts that you see on the table, and they connect together. They connect with two Allen bolts of size 3. These are included, of course. And the first part, as you can see, is a part that this area grabs around the rear axle nut, and this second part is the one that protects from the chain loop. It covers the rear sprocket and protects from the chain loop. But the most important thing for you is that, as you can see, there are two openings on either side for the Allen bolts to go through, and this is because it will give you some more freedom and some flexibility to better adjust whether you want this second part to be closer or further from the rear sprocket. As far as the first piece of the product is concerned, I mentioned that this area grabs around the rear axle nut, and in fact, to demonstrate, I have tested it with the original Suzuki V-Strom, of course, but also with two aftermarkets. The first one, you see it here, and as you can see, it fits perfectly. It grabs around it and fits perfectly. The second aftermarket you will see during the tests, because I have it on the motorcycle, and this is the original axle nut from Suzuki, that again you see it fits perfectly. So it's assembly time. As I mentioned, these two pieces connect together. First step is to flip this piece over, and this one goes on top like this. As I mentioned, you need to play around and adjust how close or how far you want this second part to be to your rear sprocket. From my experience, you can put it as close as possible with the 650 V-Stroms. It doesn't come in contact with the rear sprocket, and still it provides the maximum protection from the chain loop. So you align the two openings of the first part with the openings of the second one, and then you use your Allen bolts of size 3, as I mentioned. You don't have to go super tight with the bolts, just snag them a bit and you are done. And this is the final product assembled. So as you can see, in my case, I used the two openings on the back to connect the two pieces, and so the Allen bolts passed through the back openings, and that means that the part that covers the rear sprocket is closer to the rear sprocket and offers maximum protection. Talking about 650 V-Stroms, this product will fit all 650 V-Stroms of all generations, but for the older generations, for the second and the first generation V-Stroms, please note that you always need to have the axle nut from the chain side. That means that if it is from the other side, you remove it, you insert the axle from the other side, and the axle nut from the chain side and that's done. For some motorcycles, and even for some older generation of V-Stroms, the rear axle nut, it might be the case that it is from the right side of the motorcycle. That means not from the chain side, but from the opposite side. In that case, it's not possible for the guard to be installed properly because it doesn't have the rear axle nut to grab on the opening. So that's not a problem, and as I mentioned, it fits all V-Strom 650 and all generations. What you have to do is to remove the rear axle nut, pull out the axle, then insert the axle from the right side, so not from the chain side, and the rear axle nut from the chain side. And now it's possible for the guard, for the opening of the guard, this one, to grab the rear axle nut, and so for the guard to be installed properly. Plug and play and toolless, no tools required. Install and remove in seconds. To install, you insert from this side. This top part of the guard goes underneath the chain guard. These and these parts, they go around or on top of the swing arm. When you reach at this point, you grab this flexible plastic part, you pull towards the outside, and the purpose is to insert this opening around the rear axle nut. So you push, you grab and pull it outwards at the same time, and it is installed in seconds. And as you can see, it's stable. The rear sprocket spins freely and everything is done. To remove, it's the opposite process. You grab from this side, you pull towards the back of the bike, and at the same time you pull this flexible plastic and it comes out in seconds. It is 3D printed from tough yet flexible plastic, and the purpose is to resist on the motorcycle vibrations but also heat and UV. It has already been used for 2 years or a bit more from the company's owner and by some other motorcycle riders. By me for 1 month that I am using it, and I'm testing it to do this video. On stability point of view on high speeds, as you can see on your screen, I personally, on first installation, I installed it on my motorcycle and then went up and tested it on the highway on high speeds up to 185 kilometers per hour. It was very stable, and the claims of the company are true, and it holds great. From use cases point of view, that means where you can use it. I'm sure many of you will ask me on the comments if it is suitable for off-road, and I would say yes. For light off-road, yes. For on-road, definitely. After you lube your chain, yes, if you want to use it in this way, but for heavy off-road, probably not. It's best to not use it for heavy off-road use. But I will give you also a conclusions part at the end of the video where I will also mention about those use cases. For effectiveness and protection from chain lube, the claims of this product, how we will test them, we will perform a series of tests, actually the following. Four exactly alike white cartons like the ones you can see below and I have prepared for the 4 tests will collect the dry chain lube and the gear oil with and without the guard. So 4 tests, 4 cartons, and in the end all the lube or gear oil results in the cartons will be compared. Each time and for each one of the 4 individual tests, the same quantity of either gear oil or dry chain lube will be applied on a clean, warm chain. The bike will remain stationary, as you can see it right now, on the center stand, and we will rev, or actually the bike itself will automatically rev at approximately 1600 RPMs on second gear for 30 seconds. As I mentioned, for these two first tests we will use dry chain lube. To ensure the same quantity of dry chain lube, we will spray the same number of times, let's say 15, for both tests. First the outer side, now the inner side. Test number 1. Dry chain lube and guard off. Test number 2. Dry chain lube and guard on. As I mentioned, for the two tests we will use gear oil, and to ensure that the same quantity is used or applied both times, we will fill the same container with gear oil up to the same level both times. Now apply the gear oil with a clean brush. First from the outer side of the chain and afterwards from the inner one. Test number 3. Gear oil and guard off. Test number 4. Gear oil and guard on. And these are the results. As you can see from your screen, and the results from the 4 individual tests which are now concluded, it is quite clear and quite obvious that the Clean Disc Guard does protect from dry chain lube or gear oil or whatever product you use to lube your chain. Now for some areas of attention. First of all, it's not recommended for heavy off-road use, and that's something also mentioned by the company itself. Then the fact that it is so ridiculously easy to install, but also to remove, and it's toolless, meaning that you don't need any tools to do so. It comes with the benefit of less effort and less time, but at the same time you should consider that it comes also with a risk that someone else will also be possible to remove it if you have your motorcycle parked somewhere. Price-wise, it seems to be a logical on the average side price, but I will let you decide upon that. So conclusions, a decent looking, stealthy, strong enough component for on-road and light off-road use, that it is ridiculously easy to install and remove. It does stay stable on 185 plus kilometers per hour on highway speeds, and protection wise it does seem to deliver on what it promises, keeping your bike clean and your spokes and rims corrosion free. As always, thanks for watching another episode or another video from my channel, and of course, ride safe.